Hello, everyone. This is the June monthly astrology talk, and I so appreciate you all being here. I have a lot of information to cover, and I was speaking earlier about how the astrological alignments and aspects create a whole picture, but we're going to kind of take it apart and build it up to see the whole picture. I want to work both like what might this mean collectively, but also personally, because it's such a very powerful time of change and moving from one era to another era and kind of an upheaval in order to expose what's been hidden or what's not been seen or ignored and to bring it out to the surface. And so it's like, as Michael Meade would say, we're between chaos and creation, and it's a very potentially important creative time, uh, and it's also a really important time for conscious choice. Um, what's going on can be in our country can be very overwhelming, and we have to take it in bits and pieces, but it's also a time to pay attention and to know what our values are and to take a stand for those values. It is similar in certain ways to the Civil War. We've talked about this before. The lineup of planets has some similarity in the last 5 years to the Civil War dynamics there, and what values are going to take us forward. And so that's why it's so important for us to be able to know what those are and to participate. So I'm going to start with the slides. Let's see, okay, here we go. Yeah, okay. Just gonna, there I am. Okay, so this year I called the year Into the Rapids, and we can feel that we're continuing with that themes. But, what are, again, the values that will lead us into the future? Because there's this time period we're in is this rapid movement for taking things apart and then rebuilding things to create something new as our foundation. So you can look at that both as the United States and in our own lives as well. Um, so go on. I want to just let you know about the class I'm giving, which starts next week, Tuesday night. It'll deepen the material we're talking about today, plus bring in your own chart. So you'll be able to see how it's affecting your own chart. So it's only 3 classes, and you can go to my website and sign up. I do believe I sent this out with the handouts as well. Okay.
Susan, I have a question about that because I did go to your website for the session and I thought I saw two different dates.
Uh-huh. Do you remember what you saw?
You know what? I'll email you. I'll take a look again and email you.
Okay, these are the dates: Tuesday night, June 17th, 24th, and July 1st. So if I made a mistake on the website, then these are the right dates. Okay, thanks
So,
for alerting my attention to that.
so June 17th through July 1st or June 17th and then another session July 1st.
June 17th, the
Oh,
24th.
okay. Yeah. Let me check the website again and
Okay, thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so I just had to put this photo in. This was taken during the Sagittarius full moon, our last full moon, June 11th, which is traditionally called the strawberry moon. Um, it is said that it's the lowest full moon. In other words, it's not going to go high above us or high in the sky. It's going to keep on a lower, closer to the horizon since 20 until 2043. But I wanted to have you see this as a symbol of what's being highlighted right now. And it is interesting how red the moon is, and it's the Statue of Liberty, in case you didn't know what that was. So the Statue of Liberty is being highlighted in this full moon photograph. Seems like, in terms of what our values are, it's a big statement. Okay, okay, I'm going to go on. Okay, so this is what I'll be touching on today. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the last week and this week going through maybe June 17th. So I'm going to talk about what's going on right now. And that's with the full moon and Mars square Uranus, which we're in that right now. Very disruptive kind of aspect that we'll go into in more depth. So I'm going to start with that. And then I'm going to talk about the Saturn Neptune conjunction. It's basically in 1 Aries, 0, 1 Aries. Then I'm going to talk about this important 0 Aries, 1 Aries, this important point that's known as the Aries point, and how it's a potent symbol of new beginnings. I'll talk about the Aries vortex again, which is the outer planets lineup that is very rare. And I'll talk about Jupiter moving into Cancer. So it's left Gemini, it's moved into Cancer. And then we're at the last Jupiter Saturn waxing square. That's what I'm going to be talking about. We'll see those things also in the summer solstice chart. And then I'm going to talk about what's going on in the USA. Okay. So this is a chart for today. This is at 9:30. But here, what I want to show you is there's Uranus at 28 Taurus, and it's squaring Mars in Leo. And that is a very disruptive and um, aggressive type of conflictual aspect, but I'm going to go into it in more detail in a minute. I want to point out that Saturn is conjunct Neptune. So Saturn and Neptune are opposites. Neptune is boundaryless, it's transcendent, it's that spiritual world behind our world, it's the imagination. It's the ocean, so it doesn't have a solid form. It's idealization, where Saturn is form, uh, limitation, structure. And so they're together now, and it's an uncomfortable conjunction. And we're going to be talking about that. And there's Jupiter moving into Cancer. So let's see here. There's that beautiful full moon. And here's the full moon chart. Um, so there's the moon in Sag opposite the sun in Gemini. There's a grand trine linking up the moon with Mars in Leo and Chiron in Aries. And so you might think of this as this energy moving without obstruction between the fire signs. So this bold action, dramatic action, but also bringing up the wounds of the masculine or the warrior, or seeking healing around uh, the assertive energy. And then what we see also here is that, again, Uranus is squaring that Mars. So even though it's like 2 degrees away from exact, we're in that orb that now that's been activated, and it's very dramatic action. Mars in Leo, pride and passion, with aggressive acts, assertive acts, in attentional relationship. So that was Mars, with the planet of rebellion, sudden unexpected crisis, disruption, quick changing events, lightning, um, unpredictable shifts in what was stable. So Uranus in Taurus, Taurus is very stable, but Uranus has been in Taurus for the last 7 years. It's kind of shaking up our ground of being before it goes into Gemini. And we're in this passage right now where the assertive, aggressive, bold energy of Mars in dramatic Leo is in tension with this rebellious energy. And you can feel it all over. Now, on a personal level, I would say, um, where do you want to take a risk? Can you be slow and thoughtful and mindful about it? What is ready to break free? In what way do you want to express yourself? But the big thing is kind of to watch it happening around you and be objective. Oh, that's that energy, this disruptive, assertive, maybe angry energy that's out there, and I don't want to react. So we can look at our reactions to this kind of energy as well. And there's the Saturn Neptune conjunction, which I'm going to go into in depth. But I do want to point out that it's in Mars sign. So, as an astrologer, we look at, okay, these planets are happening in Aries. I want to get some more information about Aries. Is Mars in Pisces? Is it next to Venus? It kind of calms down that Aries energy, but so it's another theme, another description of how that particular Aries energy might be playing out as the planet of constriction and structure and discipline and authority meets idealization, the masses, imagination, empathy, care for others. Well, I go over here and I see, oh, wow, Mars is in another fire sign. That's a passionate sign. It wants to be expressive and it's intentional relationship with Uranus. This is explosive. Both of these planets represent lightning and electricity, breakthrough, breakdown. So we're in that right now. And here's Trump's chart. I wanted to show you. And, also for astrology students, this is, very interesting because we're really seeing that this full moon activated and was in exact position of Donald Trump's sun and moon. So when that happens, you can see there's the sun, 20 Gemini, and there's the moon at 20 Sag. You can, when that happens, it's almost like his nature gets amplified, gets triggered, gets pulled out, like he's most himself right now. And it emphasizes his uh, position and his emotional nature, how he goes about in day to day. And then on top of this, as you can see, Mars, transiting Mars, which is right here, this is where it is in the heavens, is on his natal Mars, which is on his ascendant. So it's really activating his desire to assert, to win, to be aggressive. It rules the military, and we have the military parade coming up. This is the masculine here. It's very accentuated in his chart right now. And on top of that, we have the Uranus square Mars, meaning that Uranus is squaring his Mars. So it's unstable, it's unpredictable. There's unexpected things that will happen. There's conflict around rebellion and disruption. And also, it's interesting to think about his Mercury, transiting Mercury's on his Mercury. this is like giving him voice. Um, but it is interesting. I mean, this is like a fluke because when would a full moon fall on your chart when you were born at a full moon? And in fact, he was born at an eclipse, as well as and separate from Mars on falling on his Mars. So there's something very particular being lifted out in his character for all of us to see at this time and respond to in whatever way we do. So keep your questions and I'll open up for questions in a little bit. Now I'm going back in time here. Let me see if I'm forgetting anything. Mhm. Okay. This is when the LA protests started. And I just wanted to review that to let you see how these aspects are playing out. So this is the six, and we can see that Uranus is, well, the way we would say it is Mars is coming to the exact square of Uranus. And um, we've gone over that. You know, there's this push for some kind of freedom because Uranus wants freedom in tension with this bold, showy, masculine energy. But also, we can flip it around. You know, we can say that the protesters are taking bold, expressive um, actions, Mars, and it's causing disruption or unexpected events to take place. So that's a really important point to remember about astrology. It's not just playing out like Trump's the Mars and the protesters are Uranus. It's also playing out like the protesters are Mars. There's a boldness that wants to come out and speak and express itself, and the administration can be like Uranus, like they're causing dis dislibrium. They're shaking things up, and they're reacting in unexpected crisis kind of ways. So it is also interesting that Venus squares Pluto this day, the day, and it's coming into the exact square as the days go on. So something that has been back in the background, Pluto, or something that's been hidden, it's like this wants to be seen through relationship, our relationship to that, our relationship to what's been hidden or oppressed, power versus powerlessness. We're bringing it out as a group in terms of our relationship with others. And notice how close Venus is to the wounded healer as well. And then you can see Chiron in Aries is opposite the moon that day. We've talked a lot about Chiron in Aries because the United States has Chiron in Aries in their foundation. So there's something about healing that aggressive, dominating Aries energy and moving it to being new birth and pioneer and healing the masculine. And so all of that is up right now. So I just want to stop for a minute. Are there any questions? Anybody want to say anything? Okay, we'll keep going then. The other thing I want to bring to your attention, so you can see this building of aspects and tension that's a setup to disrupt what is becoming the status quo and to bring something else in that can be healing. But we're also seeing that the opposite is happening. There's disruption to what was going on last year, the year before, and something is trying to take its place. Both sides are happening. Um, what I want to show you is here's Jupiter at 29 Gemini, and it's in a square to Saturn. And we will see that it is now has moved on to Cancer. And that's also a very particular uh, signature of the need to meet the crisis head on and make decisions and new kinds of ways of being, new kinds of decisions that can lead us into the future. So here's Jupiter in Cancer squaring Saturn. Are you with me all? So someone can let me know, yeah, or slow down, Sue. Give me like, yeah,
Sue, I was looking at the chart just before this one,
yeah.
and it says June 6th on it.
Yes, that's because I went back to the beginning of the protests, which
Oh, I
they
see.
started June 6th. So
I see.
I just
Got it.
wanted to see, like, let you know the energy's building up. Okay. And then,
Got it.
thank you, Kat. And then here is June 14th. So that's tomorrow. And you can see the exact square to Uranus from Mars is happening. And that's when the protests are happening all over the country. That's when the military parade will be happening. And this is a sparks flying kind of aspect. It's wanting to express in the different ways we might express and assert who we are, but there's this disruptive quality, this urge for freedom. Like you could also say there's like bold actions for personal freedom or sudden impulses to break from routines, or it can be reckless rebellion or resistance, sudden confrontations, and it can be breakthroughs and breakdowns. Um, so we're feeling this right now. And again, um, it's a potent time for anybody to have a breakthrough on a personal level where they've expanded their view of things. That's Uranus, to kind of expand that view through whatever is difficult. I'm kind of expanding that view, and it feels like a crisis, or it's unexpected, or I have anxiousness. I'm not sure how to handle it. And just being aware that you want to embody your self-worth. You want to embody, well, this is me, and work with that step by step. Now, this aspect is going to shift, and by June 17th, Mars goes into Virgo. And that's a real different energy. That'll be real interesting for us to notice the shift, because when it goes into Virgo, and it might not happen right away, but that's like more humble, more let me be of service. Let me pay attention to my body, my soul, my emotions, and make that alignment. Let me fine tune things. Let me clean and purify things. Let me work on things. So it's really almost like a real calm down kind of Mars. So just being aware that, we're Pluto's in Aquarius, saying that we're in this period of time for about 12 years where Pluto, having gone completely into Aquarius, I think it was last year, maybe the beginning of this year as well, that it's saying that what's coming up is what's toxic in the society, and we're getting a chance to look at it. And it's powerful, and it's playing out in a number of different ways: power versus powerlessness in the community, or it's like intensifying the need to make the changes in community that we need to make to transform how we relate to each other. And it also brings up technology, and you can see, the effect of AI, the effect of social media, using it, especially like with the Trump administration, how they use social media to push their view of things. But this is really highlighted this weekend, particularly with the moon right there next to Pluto in Aquarius. Now, this is the United States chart on the inside. And what I'm showing you is the timing is such, it's June 14th at 2 p.m. And then I guess the parade starts at 6:30. This is in Washington, D.C. And what I'm showing you is again Uranus square Mars, and their Mars is opposed the USA moon, and Uranus is squaring the moon. Now, in a country's chart, this is the people, this is the masses, and it's saying that something's going on that's activating the masses, that's disturbing the status quo for the masses, that they feel like there's a force that's very strong, that's the Mars, that's affecting them, and coming at them, and unexpected things might happen, but it's really activating the people. That's how I look at it. And of course, um, we have, what do we have now? Someone might know over 2,000 places where there's going to be protests, but not in Washington, D.C. Just the military parade is going to be going on in Washington, D.C. Okay. Again, I'm just showing you that this Uranus square Mars is also happening when Jupiter squares Saturn, and this is the Aries vortex. So if we say the background here to this energy that's disruptive to the status quo, that's taking a stand, that's rebellious, that's protesting, that's being bold, the background to that, we might say first is this square from Jupiter to Saturn, which is saying this is the time that a turn is going to happen by what we decide. There's this collective decision making that needs to happen so we can move into the future. And it's like with the square, it's like slowed down so we can make those decisions. Now, you can think of your own life as well, and we'll go into that a little bit, but where are you? Like, what new beginnings might be happening? What are you imagining that potentially is going to take a form? And where do you want to grow? And what decisions need to be made? It's potentially you could really break out of something old. Now, so we have the Uranus square Mars, we have Jupiter square Saturn, but what's really coming in is going to last for a couple years is what we call the Aries vortex that was named through Raymond Merriman. And it's this formation. So we see Pluto trining Uranus, and that trine's going to get closer and closer as Uranus goes into Gemini, which I believe is next month. And so when you just think of that trine, that's something unexpected and upheaval and disruption that's causing transformation, that's bringing up what's been hidden to be seen, that's causing uh, instability, uncertainty between, as Michael Meade said, between chaos and creation. So it's not just one thing. It's not just disruption and chaos and what it appears to be. It's a time period we're moving into that's got a lot of creative potential. It's unstable, but it's bringing up what needs to be seen, and it has the power for change and transformation. And it depends on how we hold the bigger space and see what our values are and what actions and decisions we make. Now, this Uranus trine Pluto, also, Pluto is issues of power and powerlessness. And it's activated in a very quick, lightning-like way. So we're at that threshold where we're looking at, wow, what's going on in terms of power versus powerlessness, in terms of our lives, our government, our communities, our people. And then it's focusing through Saturn and Neptune conjunction in Aries. And so it has to pass through this gate or threshold. And the gate is without the Saturn there, just be Neptune, which can be idealization, it can be connection with the spiritual, it can be delusion, illusion, overwhelm, feel like you're drowning, um, hard to find the truth. What's the truth? But Saturn comes in, and on one level, Saturn says, no, we're going to look right at reality. What's happening? This is going to be fact check. This is going to be, we're looking at form and structure on a grounded, earthy level. We're giving it a form so that form can take place in a variety of ways. And then it's in Aries. So some new beginning, but I'm going to talk more about that as we go on. Any questions?
Sue, I just want to say that on the day of the march, the Pope, our dear new Pope, is having something going on in Chicago.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Kathy, because I took your advice and I did do the chart of the Pope.
Great.
And it's toward the end of the talk today, but it was very interesting because he definitely fits in with the transits of now and the United States chart and also Trump's chart. It's very interesting. I didn't know that, so I'm glad that you brought that up because I wasn't sure, should I talk about him or not talk about him? But he seems like a counterpoint. So if you look at the Saturn Neptune conjunction, and this is a way you can imagine the astrological aspects, you can imagine them in many, many ways. That, the administration or Trump is Saturn, which can be the authority and it can be contraction and, you know, um, control. And then this is the Pope, which is Neptune, that spiritual energy. And there's some sort of meeting going on some level. It's a way we could look at it and play with it, but I'm going to go on. So you probably all know what's happening right now between Israel and Iran. And it's I think it's a dangerous situation. Um, and, Israel is bombing Iran, but I want you to see this. Mars is right on Israel's Mars. So this is Israel's chart in the inside, and this is the transits. Now, Mars would hit that degree 1 to 2, well, let's just say 4 days out of 2 years that would happen. But it's also happening when Uranus is squaring their Mars. And note that Israel's Mars is at the same degree as Donald Trump's. So something being in alignment with each other right now in terms of their assertiveness. Now, I'm not going to go into all the pieces of this chart because we don't have time. I didn't study it to that degree, and I don't know enough. But this can be sudden, unexpected crisis that takes place, and this is the action of it. So that Uranus squaring his Mars. And you notice that, let me see here, that Pluto right here is right at the nadir. We call it the nadir or the bottom of Israel's chart, which is saying, well, there's a big transformation happening for Israel. And it's going to continue. This is not the end. We don't know where it's going to end up, in terms of kind of taking apart, destructuring their foundation to build another foundation. And I think one has to be careful not to project the worst because of what we're seeing, um, but to be open to know that there's this process happening of somehow, um, taking apart something in the foundation of the country and putting it back together in another way. Okay, so, all right. So, I think in terms of that intensity of the Mars square Uranus, to watch and to be observant and then to participate with very conscious choice is really important, and knowing that this is the time where there's this disruption going on and it's stirring things up. Now, Jupiter square Saturn is kind of a, you could imagine it's holding this Mars Uranus aspect. That Mars Uranus aspect, as I said, it's going to change its nature by June 17th. Now, Jupiter was conjunct Saturn in December of 2020, and that was a momentous new beginning of a 200-year period that shifted the theme of our collective values and what we focus on. And it is moving us into the air element, which is much more about, in innovation, connecting with community. And it was in Earth, which from the mid 1800s or so, that's meaning each time Jupiter conjunct Saturn, it was in an Earth sign, and that happens every 20 years. So every 20 years, that conjunction where they came together in the sky would happen in an Earth sign. Well, now they're happening in an air sign, and it's about a 200-year cycle in different elements. So when it's in an Earth sign, the focus for our collective values and growth of our society was about resources from the earth. This is how we're going to grow ourselves and our economy. But now it's in air, and there's a lot of levels of meaning of that as well. And what I want to say is that then, since 2020 is now 2025, it's a 20-year cycle. So it's a quarter of the way into its cycle, which is a crisis in action indication. We call it the waxing square. It's the first time they're square, not the last time they're square, like the quarter moon, the first quarter moon or the last quarter moon. It's like the first quarter moon. The waxing square is a crisis in action. And what it's calling for, some definite, decisive awareness must enter to bring clarity and decisions that can meet the crisis and create a turn in unfolding events. This is the last square. The first one was December 24th, the next one in 2024. Oops. Okay, I think I took out the first one was, I guess, in August 2024. Then the next one was December, and this is the last one. So we've been given this time to start to make some decisions about where we're going. And, we're involved in this. I'd like to say also, on a personal level, you want to think about, well, where is one Aries in my chart? Where is one Cancer in my chart? It's calling for some specific decision to be made at this time to create a new ground from which I will grow from over the next 5 years into the phase of fulfillment at the opposition. I'm growing this, and it's kind of like it's based on the cycle of the moon. So at this quarter moon, there's a crisis in action. We've got to make a decision at square energy. And then at the full moon, there's illumination. This is some kind of fulfillment. So um, for me, Saturn's in my 11th house of community, outreach, how I connect with people, my relationship with friends. And Jupiter's in my second house of self-worth. What are my values, my relationship to money? And so it's calling for some decision around those two areas in my life and in my chart. And then if you have a planet at these points, and you could look at any a planet anywhere from 14 Gemini to 1 Cancer, uh, 14 Pisces to 1 Aries, this has been triggered. The need to make a decision to create a new foundation to move forward. So here, what has been growing meets a limiting force. We can feel, I mean, that's so, I mean, that's words by words that are just precise to what's going on. If you think, okay, here's the Trump administration and the way they're deporting migrants, immigrants, is hitting a limiting force. That's the protesters. And then that's Alex Padilla, the California senator. And then that's the governor. And then it's more and more. It's hitting a limiting force in order for the collective to seriously, seriously choose its future. I mean, you can look at that sentence on many levels in terms of the government, in terms of our country, in terms of maybe things that are happening with the earth, with your personal life, with your family. And we can feel the tension of the square through September. So I'm saying we'll feel it through September. And after that, there's a shift to more grounded, stable growth. We'll have to see what starts to happen during that time. Are there any comments or questions? Okay.
Sue, this cat.
Yeah.
The limiting force is also reflected on the attempt to limit immigration, right? So it's on both sides.
It's on both sides. Thank you for bringing that up. That's really important that we see it on both sides. Um, when you say what has been growing is hitting limiting force, I mean, you might say the way our country has been. There's some definite, decisive awareness that has to come in because we have to make some new decisions. Yeah, you can keep playing with that back and forth.
And also, what's a limiting force is the climate crisis.
Yes. But that's been going on for a little bit. It might be, I read about that Trump took away Biden's, I guess it was a agreement to take the dam off of the Columbia River in order that the salmon could run and be healthy for the Native Americans. And he just reneged that. So that's a very specific piece. Or taking off the limitations on emissions that the wasn't the oil companies, but the factories put out into our air, that was taken away. So just seeing those things, but what it does is it brings to our attention. It doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. It brings to our attention. Oh God, there's a crisis in action, and it's a call for this definite, decisive awareness to bring clarity and decisions that can meet this crisis so we can have a turn in the unfolding of events. Okay. So there you see again that square. Now, Jupiter has just moved into Cancer from Gemini, and it moves into Cancer once every 12 years. So here's another shift. It changes signs once a year, but it's going to move from the theme of the mind and mutable energy of Gemini, um, which is very much about let's connect here and there between you and me. And Jupiter in Cancer, it is going to deepen your relation to yourself and to others. And it's the sign of protection, protecting those you care about. Um, it can expand your feelings, your intuition, because it's in this water sign rather than an air sign. And we say Jupiter's exalted in Cancer, meaning that it can bring to growth what could protect us, what could be protective. And it expands the theme of home and house and family and relation to others on a feeling level. And so personally, you might feel more intuitive or expressive or emotional in terms of wanting to be nurtured and nourishing others. And so it's highlighting that growth comes from this emotional connection and nourishing others. It also represents um, patriarch, what's the word I want to say? Uh, patriotism. Somebody can say that word for me. Um, and it can be more connection with your country as well. It's an excellent time when Jupiter's in Cancer to take time to improve your relationship to yourself and to connect with your deeper needs, both for security and stability, by turning inward and attending to your inner needs, to establishing peace for yourself within. So there's a different energy that's coming out. And when it was in the mutable signs, it was more changeable, influenced, adaptable. But once in the cardinal signs, it wants to take an action. So with Jupiter in Cancer, the action is moved by your feelings to protect something that you find valuable or to take care of something. But it's like you're moved by these feelings and and there's a more of a upswelling of emotional connection between people. So that's Jupiter in Cancer. I wanted to bring up the year of the serpent or snake. And again, thanks to Kathy, she brought this up. And I wanted to just point out how it's a year where strategic energy is called for, and it's a yin, it's determined yin. So it's like a going inward and being thoughtful and mindful, contemplative and strategic in order to achieve goals, to plan wisely through foresight and strategy. And then the year of the serpent also says expect political extremes and the exposing of secrets, sudden springing into action, but it's about shedding the skin to birth something new. And one of the reasons I bring it up is I think this idea of slowing down and contemplative for strategic actions is so beneficial for our contemplations at this time of being in between chaos and creation, of being in this space of reflecting on where we are and bringing a sense of calm and depth to what is needed to nurture us, to what we want to create, to what our values are, and what we want to take action on. So now we come into the big topic of Saturn conjunct Neptune. And I do want to say that this is a big, big topic. So we're going to just touch on some of it. But in a conjunction, and this conjunction happens once in 36 years, but it happens in different signs. In a conjunction, these two planets are seeking to merge, but these two planets are the opposite of each other. So Saturn's the god of time and form. It's structure, it's law, it's authority, it's pushing us down. The Saturn's energy, it's interesting how he's holding the timepiece because it rules time and says you only have so much time, and that's where that limit comes from, like making decisions about how you use your time. You can't do everything. But it's also that pushing down, that contracting energy of Saturn wants you to go deeper, deeper into the self to find your true nature, your authentic self in accordance with this life and what you're going to form in this life. And it also represents things that will slow you down, that will obstruct you, um, because it wants you to go inward. It's kind of a separating energy to really know yourself at a deeper inner level rather than a more superficial level and going along with what we think we should be. And it rules discipline, responsibility. Some say that a strong Saturn, you can feel overwhelmed by responsibility. Um, but it's saying something about the need to look at what those are, to step up to those. And it confronts untruth. And so there's Saturn next to Neptune, the god of the waters. So Saturn's of earthy nature. This is the god of the waters, or you can think of the heavens on the tree of life, on the Kabbalistic tree of life. It's at the top of the tree, it has this great view. It's the primal ground through which everything comes and through which the light pours down. It's the imaginative, soulful qualities of the universe that are available to us that connect us to the spirit that flows through the universe. So, this idea of imagination, and you know what Einstein said, imagination is more important than knowledge. It's this act of creative engagement with the world. And it's moving into those states where you're feeling the possibilities and allowing yourself to see the vision of what you will create. It also represents empathy, collective feeling. So this all-encompassing, no separation. And it's a very refined energy that's difficult to navigate because when you're that open as Neptune is, you can merge with all sorts of things that all sorts of other people, all sorts of environments, all sorts of events. And that's when Saturn can help you create a boundary. So that's one good thing when they're coming together. It's Neptune's altered states of consciousness and unity consciousness. And it's processed just like the ocean on rocks or on the sand. It erodes what's rigid in form, and it wants to reimagine the world. So some of us have that in our natal chart. If you're born in 1953 and 1950, part of 1954, you have that in your natal chart, and you're working always with how do I give form to the imagination? And sometimes that Saturn overpowers the Neptune, and it is judgmental and, kind of like a harsh father or an administration that says you're wrong and we're going to contract you. And sometimes that Neptune really erodes the form you have in your life. And so you're kind of feeling loss or abandonment or overwhelm. So knowing about these two archetypes and what They're here, their form can help you go, okay, that's the negative Neptune. I need to bring in more Saturn. I need to limit. I need to structure. Uh, oh, that judgmental force, that's the limiting Saturn. I need to find ways to walk by the ocean, to go paint, to go do art, to go do creativity. So, they're conjuncting at 1 Aries, that's 0 to 1 Aries, and they're within 1 degree of exact in June and July, and the exact is February 20th of next year. So we've talked about this. Saturn, another way to talk about this is Saturn is a maturing process. Um, it pressures us to go inward and meet our own inner conditioning that has formed our choices or our life, so we can decide, do we need to let go or cut some of that away in order to get to this fullness of life, of our life, the master teacher. So it'll slow and obstruct when necessary for refinement. And they say when the maturing process, when this is resisted, which we all resisted, it's not uncommon. It's a kind of every human thing. It creates suffering, depression, oppression, or obstacles. And then it can represent fear or tight control or repressive authority. So this is why astrology can be so helpful, because Saturn, its core archetype of energy, isn't there to create suffering. It's there to push us down and to see within ourselves what's not working for us, in order that Saturn can give form to a new way of understanding ourselves, which can lead us to fulfillment. So it's good to understand what the correlations to Saturn are. Now, I have this quote I wanted to read you, but I don't think it's right here. Easy for me to get to. Um, okay, let me gather a little bit. Uh, This is the quote. I really like this quote. And I did hear it from Mark Jones, which I highly recommend. He's a fantastic astrologer. You can, in fact, he has a great class or workshop lecture on Saturn and Neptune in the Astrology University. So you go to their website. But he was talking about, I'm not sure if he took this quote from someone else, but he says, because of our response to limitation, it imposes that. So thinking of Saturn, our response to the limitations that Saturn impose, we are moved to create and find meaning within. And I think you can all feel that, like when we feel that limitation and struggle that Saturn imposes, we search to find more meaning. Okay, so Neptune again corresponds to the boundarylessness and transcendent reality of oneness. It's also the artist's imaginative, creative mind, and the importance of the deep soul reimagining the world. You know, if you go to Michael Meade, he's always talking about that. This is the realm of Neptune, and we move into it, but it's we have to be thoughtful when we're in it. As you know, Kathy would say, participation mystique. You know, we have to also bring that Saturn in and have, okay, time limits. We don't want to lose ourselves in that. But Neptune can also Its negative signature is deception or living in ideals that aren't grounded, or confusion, overwhelm, disappointment, loss. On the other hand, it can represent faith and trust. So Saturn builds and structures, and Neptune dissolves and merges with the environment. So you can see that at this time, there's this energy that wants to build and structure something, but at the same time, there's a dissolving of the old. Now they're meeting in one Aries. And the last time they met, but it wasn't in Aries, it was in Capricorn, I believe, was the fall of the Berlin Wall. So there's the dissolving of a structure. But it carries the potential for alchemical transformation, where these limitations or challenges lead to breakthroughs and power of resurrection. So with them coming together, they're representing the ending of one cycle of dreaming up a manifestation, and it's beginning a new time of imagining what we'll create and build together. And this goes on for 9 months. We're just beginning it. So Neptune dissolves the structure of Saturn. That's not sustainable. We're in the middle of that. While Saturn can give form to Neptune's imaginative powers, and it really, I mean, for artists and musicians, it can be really important. Just the very fact that these two are together says that this is an important time for people to understand that power in the imaginative world, that power by connecting to the deep soul. Let's see here. Now, the negative side of that, and we watch that as well, is Saturn can oppress the imaginative powers of Neptune to keep power over and control. And Neptune can bring deception into mass thinking. It can dissolve institutions that have wisdom. So we're in this. We're in this right now. And again, it's not a projection that'll always be that way. We're in this alchemical transformation. Things have come up that were down below, and they were needed to be seen and worked with, especially around finding what we value. So you can look at that both personally and collectively. You know, when I taught the Kabbalah, which is the tree of life, there's a creation story in the Kabbalah that talks about the downpour of light during the first creation. And that downpour of light was contained within the vessels until it came down to the vessel that holds a form. And those vessels were called Sephira. And that light was too much and it overwhelmed the vessels, which the vessels also correspond to the planets and to human consciousness, to human evolution. And it overwhelmed those vessels. And so everything shattered into pieces, and all the pieces of light got buried in the earth, got buried down in matter. And it is said that it is our job to find those pieces of light and to restore the world, to restore our soul. And it's called Tikkun Olam. I probably am pronouncing it a little funny, but it's about restoring the world. And it definitely seems like that's where we are right now. Tikkun Ha-Nefesh is to restore our souls. And when these two planets come together, there's the end of one time, a beginning of another. We're reimagining what the form will be. Okay, is there any comments right now? I'll take some questions if there's, because I'm giving you a lot of information.
I
Okay.
thought I'd fill the moment with a with an observation and a question, not precisely to the point of Saturn and Neptune, although I am very interested in that, but I just wanted to introduce the idea that you brought up a number of months ago about the position of the fixed star Regulus conjuncting Trump's ascendant,
Yes.
and that uh, in a couple of weeks, Uranus will be squaring the ascendant and the fixed star,
Right.
and as how that might play into potential um, events. So, thanks for letting me fill in the silence.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. Yes. Good point. And that's why, it's really good to have you all here because I can't remember everything. But Steve is bringing up a good point, and it's, similar when you think of Trump's chart with Mars at, I think it's 26, 28, 26 Leo, and his rising is 29 Leo, I believe. It's somewhere around there. Regulus, the stars is rising on his ascendant, which marks him as the ancients would say, so this comes from long ago, the kingmaker. But they'd say, if the king was vengeful, he'd have a fall from power. And so we all know how vengeful Donald Trump is. So I'm glad you brought this up because it is very interesting that something is shaking it, some unexpected crisis is shaking it, and some sudden event might expose that downfall, but it is such an interesting theme, isn't it? With Trump at one point saying he was the king of the world, and then, they told him about the protests that were named no king, and he said, I'm not a king. It's just interesting if you're living in the symbolic world to hear this going on with that star at its ascendant. And that Uranus is going to stay in that position for about a year. And so it's been coming up, but it's going to stay there. And so, yes, Steve, thanks for bringing that up. I mean, we're looking at now the potential for a new world to begin, but we're also looking at the potential. It feels like the oppressive weight of an old world wanting to take over and narrow our creative, innovative way of imagining what this world could be. Now, in the Jupiter square Saturn, that waxing square, one of the things that is said about that aspect that we're in right now is that we can't go to the past. The past won't resolve what we're trying to come to. It won't resolve the issues. And it's very definite that you can't go into the past. So it's setting up, I think it's setting up some big kind of Plutonian eruption and kind of like the phoenix kind of energy for something to come that's been not in the forefront. Now in the forefront is confronting that old idea with something new. So I think that might be part of the challenge of the independents, the Democrats, the Republicans who aren't necessarily bought into the MAGA as well. But the whole thing we're going through is bringing up issues we need to address, like where have we ignored certain people, and what have we not seen where there's static in the government that needs to be changed. So it's kind of like throwing everything up in the air, but then having this pressure and contraction that there can be nothing that will disagree with the point of view that's being put out. So it's very interesting what's going on right now. And I just want to encourage you not to look at it as a projection about what's going to happen forever and ever. So this conjunction is happening in Aries, zero Aries, the very beginning of the sign. So what does it mean when Saturn goes into Aries? The last time Saturn was in Aries was 1996 to 1999. Might look at your own life to see what was going on. So it's just touching into Aries and then going back into Pisces, back, I believe, to 25 Pisces, and Neptune is at 1 degree Aries, but it goes back at, I believe, to 29 Pisces. So we're still in this time period. And I talked about this in the 2025 talk in January, where there's this trying to birth something. That 0 degrees Aries, and I'll come back to this, but 0 degrees Aries is called the Aries point. And in history of astrology, it was a very important point that represented the increased potential for public recognition or an impact on the world or having an impact on the world. It was a birth of something new. And it's the point of emergence. And it's seen as that point where you start the individuation process of coming into being. And so the point itself, 0 Aries, which is called by astrologers the Aries point, carries a lot of symbolic uh, meaning, that there's something that's trying to be born. And it will have an impact on the world. And that Aries is very pioneering. It's spring, it's pushing forth new growth, but it's also related. Let me go back. It's also related to war and to conflict. Um, so we're at this edge where how is that Saturn going to play out in Aries? And we have this array of manifestations. Saturn in Aries can contract and intensify that Aries energy of the warrior and aggression and assertion, which we are feeling in LA at this time. But it's also saying, how can that Saturn give form to that creative new life that just like all babies come in, how do they manage that new life that's within them? What do we want to give form to that takes creativity and boldness? How do we discipline it? How do we mature it? And that's what's trying to happen as well. So you can see Saturn in Aries, it's contracting, it's contracting that warrior energy. It's saying, no, let's look at what's really happening. No more bullshit, so to speak, especially since it's next to Neptune, which in its negative form is illusion and delusion and spin and propaganda. And we see that going on right now. I just heard that on the television, or not the television, who has a television? In social media, in the media, there's this whole strategy that the administration has done and put together and done film clips and edited them so it looks like LA's burning and they had to come in. And in fact, what the Secretary of Homeland Security said was, she said, and so this is the Neptunian that the Saturn's going to fact check. She says that, oh, where is this? This is not it. Nope, I'm not sure if I have that. But what she basically said, maybe someone remembers, is does someone remember?
Yeah.
Somebody said,
She's had, yeah.
Christy Nome.
she,
Christy
Yeah.
Nome said she's
Thank
liberating.
you.
Liberating, yeah.
That's it. That's it. Go ahead. Somebody read that or say it.
Well, I'm here in LA, so she said she's going to liberate LA from its socialist, l- socialist radicals that are ruining this country. And she named Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom. They're going
Yeah,
to
she was talking to the National Guard people and the military, and she said, "We're here defending our country against socialism and I don't know what the next radical actions and the incompetence of the leaders here." That's what she said. So it's interesting. We can feel that Neptune taking place, that negative or lower form of Neptune, but that Saturn's gonna check it the whole way. It's not gonna let it run free. Now, Saturn just came into that Aries next to that Neptune, so it's now beginning and it's going to go on for about 9 months. So thank you for that quote. I appreciate that very much. Now, Neptune hasn't been in Aries for a very long time because its cycle is 165 years. So the last time it was in Aries was 1703. So there's a shift from Neptune being in Pisces, which is very dreamy, idealistic, hard to kind of find what's true, what's not true. And a lot of astrologers have said, yeah, we've moved through this time where we can't find what's true anymore. And it's moving into Aries, which it is perhaps bringing more boldness to our search for spiritual truths or boldness in a spiritual leader. And I don't know if that would be the new pope. I have no idea, but who knows? It's also a time where we can imagine and pioneering vision what could take place over the next number of years. Neptune can bring redemption, salvation, and it's activating that new life, new spring as it comes in. It can bring out bold, empathetic activism, bold and pioneering artists as well. This in the beginning of Aries. And just knowing that it's going back and forth still into Pisces. So we're definitely at this crossroads point of endings and new beginnings. Let me keep moving on here. So this is a quote by Ray Merriman, a great astrologer. He says, "Our future is in the process of being reimagined. The ingress of planets into new signs is a significant event. It represents a heightened experience of the sign as the planets then are orienting and expressing new themes and qualities, new experiences. The past is a past, and the future is in the state of birthing something new." This is the Aries vortex that we're coming into. Now, I don't want to overload everybody because this is a lot of material, but this Aries vortex, here's a picture of it. So here's the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. There's Pluto in Aquarius, trining Uranus. Uranus will move into Gemini in July as it goes back and forth. It's interesting that it's conjunct Sedna, which is the Inuit feminine goddess of the seas that was betrayed by her father and thrown into the sea or abandoned into the sea, and even cut her fingers off to get her out of the boat because he wanted to save himself. And then her fingers became all the sea creatures, and she became the goddess of the seas and the sea creatures and taking care of the creatures, taking care of the seas. So she's right in there also. And think of it, she takes 11,000 years to go around the sun. So this is so rare that she's next to Uranus, which is break down, to break through, free myself up, freedom, new ways of seeing things. And it's in harmony with Pluto, which also says we've got to take things apart. Things have to let go, surrender, die in order to be reborn. What's been hidden beneath the surface? Suddenly it's coming fast moving forward, fast moving change, fast moving. And now it has to go through the gate of Saturn and Neptune. Uh, what are we going to give form to? What are we going to imagine? What spin is there? What propaganda? What illusion? What control is going on? It's like shaking this all up. And this formation will be around 9 months with Saturn and Aries, but then this is going to be over a year and a half or so, 2 years. So we're in this right now. And the summer solstice picks up those themes, and that's just what I wanted to show you. Sun conjunct Jupiter. This is nice for us we'll just move into personal levels. It's really supporting, what do you want to protect? What do you want to grow? How do you want to form boundaries to what you want to grow? It's still squaring Saturn. How do you want to nurture yourself? This is a decision-making time. So, and then we're going to look at the United States. Now, those of you who've been coming to the class, I've been using this little chart the last number of times. But it just shows how much, if we just look at Pluto, Chiron, Uranus return, meaning that once in so many years, Pluto 248 years, Chiron 50 years, Uranus 84 years, they return to the natal position in the USA chart, and we call it a return. But think all the different length of time of those returns, they're all happening at the same time within a 3-year period. It's just marking that this transformation and this upheaval is happening. So a rebalance can take place, and especially at the root of who we are. And there's, of course, the Jupiter-Saturn square that's affecting all of what we've talked about has been affecting the USA chart. So let's take a look. So this is June 15th to the United States chart. And again, as I pointed out earlier, Uranus is squaring the USA moon, which means the people are roused up and, they're wanting to make a statement for rebelling and standing up to create change. But at the same time, this Jupiter is passing over the 3 planets in Cancer in the USA chart. And so that shows that there's protection, that there's a certain amount of patriotism, of wanting to nurture our country. And that could be happening in different ways from different perspectives. And as we look at this chart, it's showing Uranus has moved in Gemini. That's August. And it's showing how the very foundation of our country is being affected by the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. We're trying to work out, what are we going to reimagine? What form? Is this the form? Is there going to be authoritarianism? Is there going to be democracy? We're trying to work it out to create a new beginning here. And so this Aries vortex is stimulating that. Something new wants to come out. And what else do I have here? I'm showing how Chiron in Aries is squaring Pluto. Something wants to be healed around our values as well. Okay, let's see. And this is Donald Trump's chart again. This is just today, which we've gone over his chart. And this is where, okay, so that's April of next year. So about what, 10 months from now, this is when his chart gets really aspected in difficult ways by Saturn. And that'll go on then into 2027, 2028 as it, so Saturn here is squaring his Mercury. Mercury's the is a predominant planet in his chart because it rules his sun and north node, and it's saying there's obstruction to his plans, to what he wants to communicate, to um, his strategies. And then Saturn opposite Chiron and Neptune. Saturn opposite Neptune. I mean, typically it says that whatever the illusion is, whatever the ideal is, it's being stopped. It's being stopped in order to be looked at and reevaluated. And often, if you look up that transit in astrology books, it'll say there's disappointment. It's also going to be a timing because Saturn will go opposite his Chiron, saying that he's having to look at the wounded healer in him, the wound in him. Now, that's huge topics, and I'm just going over them very briefly. I want to stop for a minute and see. Oh, here's the Pope's chart. First, to see if there's any questions or comments, because I've been running through this very fast. And while you think about it, I'm going to let my dog out into the backyard. So you think about it. Okay. Before we go into this chart, are there any questions or comments or even like personal questions that you have?
I have a question about this is Debbie. I have a question about what you had just said about Trump's chart and the squaring of Saturn to Mercury. Um, I personally have it squaring not only Mercury but Chiron and my ascendant. And I'm just kind of curious. You were describing it as a challenging time coming up for him with that. And I'm just curious how that might be of effect, if it's okay to have a personal question like that.
Yes, it's great to have a personal question. Say it one more time, Debbie, that you have Saturn squaring what?
Squaring Mercury, Chiron, and just about my ascendant.
So are is
They're
Mercury
in they're in Capricorn,
okay,
right? Beginning of
Capricorn.
Capricorn. Yeah.
Is Mercury conjunct Chiron?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And you have Capricorn rising?
Yes.
Okay. So one of the things I would say is that it's really time to look at what mental patterns, thought patterns aren't serving you anymore.
Mm.
What old ways of communicating or mostly thinking about yourself um, aren't working anymore. Um, and it's the timing is for healing. Um, I mean, we could talk about this for about a half hour or an hour or more, but I'd also say um, if you are working on any projects, it's saying you really have to slow down and focus. Now, is that Mercury at 1 or 2 degrees?
Two.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know if you have some projects going on, but um, well, you and I could talk privately, but it would be slow down to look at, do they feel really authentic to you? Or are you trying to meet something, some outside judgment around it? And how would they feel more authentic for you? Do any of those apply to you?
Definitely, and I totally appreciate it. Yeah, and it gives a perspective other than, oh no, this is happening and it must mean that, whatever, something terrible is happening, but it's the perspective on it. What I think is added to it that I'm confused by sometimes is the physical reaction to a square situation. But that's a session in itself. So
Okay,
thank
are you
I won't go
saying
there.
are you saying that the square implies to you that some pain or
Yeah, that I'm curious about that, but yeah, that's another story, another question.
well, I think it's an excellent question because I want people to be able to ask some personal questions because it's important for us to be able to know how do we work with these. Now, one thing I would say, if you have Saturn squaring one of your planets, particularly Mercury or any of those personal planets, um, give yourself more time. So don't pack in a lot of things. Uh, give yourself time to contemplate and to go inward and to feel into where you are. Because the square itself is a crossroads. And we talked about that Jupiter Saturn square. It's saying, okay, I'm at this crossroads. It looks as if here's the square. It looks as if I can't go forward in the way I've been going forward. Something needs to be defined and to act it out differently. So you want to slow things down. Now, what can happen during times like that is that you might have someone say something to you. So that's Mercury, that where you feel a reaction to it. And, or, it could be something shifts in your life, and you have to then uh, kind of re-establish yourself and remember that this is the thing about studying astrology for so many years. There's some great significance to this change for me, for my evolution, for my growth. So remember that saying I gave about the pressure or oppression of Saturn is is what moves one to create more meaning in their life.
Mhm, mhm.
And so, just as an example, I think trying to remember what it was. Maybe it was Saturn squaring. Well, Pluto was squaring my Mercury, and Saturn squaring my Venus, and my son moved across the country and it's very close. I'm very close to him. And because his dad died when he was 17, we were just that much closer. And all of a sudden, you could look at that, okay, that's a square thing. But all of a sudden I saw, well, I have to reframe how I look at this and how I hold this. And it's time for something else to come forth from me and look at what my options are, in terms of that new way of being with him. So is that helpful for you?
Very much. Yeah. No, thank you. It gives a perspective. We'll probably talk at some point to go further into it. Thank
There,
you.
I think it's really important to know that there's nothing in the transits that are trying to punish you, but
Mhm.
there's dilemmas that we have to rise to the occasion. And always Saturn wants you to slow down, create more time for contemplation because it pressures us down into the soul, into the deep. And you can see it in the glyph of Saturn, which I'll come back to once we're back on the slides. But while I'm here, Debbie, thank you. I
Thank
appreciate your question, and I bet others did too. Is there any other questions? I'm just going to take a little time for that.
I do have a question, Susan.
Yes, who's this?
Leslie.
Hi, Leslie.
Hi. I had my Jupiter return on Friday the 6th at 29 degrees, 17 seconds of Jupiter in, I mean, of, yeah, Jupiter in Gemini in my fourth house. And almost at that exact moment is when I received the message that there was a protest downtown, and to get there immediately. And that was last Friday. I have never been, well, first of all, understanding the energetic degree, I don't quite understand that, but also I've never been more compelled to be, I mean, you know, to actually be on the front line of protests, even though I've been involved in social activism my whole life. And this seems just like I have no choice but to be on the front line supporting this movement. And I'm really scared. And my whole family is very scared. And I don't know. I guess it feels very personal to me, especially in the fourth house of security and home and going out, stepping out of the concentric circles of home, being your house, but this is also my home of my country, and it feels much the impersonal feels so personal right now. And I was wondering if you could give me some feedback about that.
Well, I definitely have empathy for you being down there and being in that position. And um, I think what you're tapping into is that there's a mission, or there's something that you feel, would grow you and engage with you. But remember, Saturn squaring that Jupiter. So you want to be strategic. You want to slow down. You don't want to be impulsive in any way, because that impulsive in the immediate the immediate energy is so strong with that Mars Uranus happening,
Mhm.
that you want to be thoughtful. Like, take your time to think about, what way can I feel more safe in joining this?
Mhm.
And really think about it and honor that part of you that wants to nurture your values. There's something that's moving you, that's Jupiter, saying there's something to protect. So I wouldn't I wouldn't put any heavy duty you should on you, because that's very Saturn. I
Uh-huh.
would take your time to contemplate, in what way might this work for me?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm involved in an organization that is they're very, very organized, and it feels safe. And it's so out of my character to participate in this way. That's, and that this Jupiter return happened exactly like almost the exact time as when things really erupted here. I'm hearing what you're saying, but also feel like I can't ignore that. Like it's
Yeah.
catching me into, like, it's time to really stand in and up for your values, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, I'd also see, have you been remembering any of your dreams? Like, what else is going on in your private life? I would also look at that, not to shut out taking a stand, but like you said, what are your values? What's important to you in terms of engagement uh,
Mhm.
with the community? Yeah, I agree with you. It definitely seems it's your Jupiter return, and there's things that come up that seem very significant and symbolic at the Jupiter return.
Mhm.
And also it's with the Saturn squaring that Jupiter. So that's why I say take your time and really take some time to kind of map out and listen to your dreams. And
Mhm.
um, yeah, I hope that helps you and supports you in thinking about that. I don't know if I'm answering your question exactly.
No, yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much, and I appreciate your insight about the considering the Saturn return and yeah, again, normally I am a very I have 6 planets in Virgo in my sixth house, so
Yeah, right. We're coming, Leslie, we're coming to the end of our time. So I just want to check in and see if there's anybody else.
sure.
In fact, we're a minute over.
Oh, thank you for your
You know
patience.
what? I'm really glad you're with us today and as part of what's going on in the world.
Thank you. I'm glad
Yeah.
to be.
Okay. Are there any other questions? I know we have the Pope chart. Kathy, are you still with us? Nope. Okay. Is Suzanne with us?
Yes.
Do you want to say a poem?
Do you,
Sue, this is Janine.
Yeah,
I
Janine.
would I would love it if you could say a few words about the Pope's chart.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna go back into Suzanne, hold that, okay? Okay, I'm kind of figuring out what I'm doing. Okay, here we go. Okay, here we are. All right. So, so here's the Pope's chart. The time is not known. So this Sagittarius rising and where all the planets fall in the houses, you can't use that. We're just looking at the aspects between the planets and the signs. So you can see all this Virgo that he has, which definitely makes sense. This is someone who wants to serve. Um, and you can see also that Mars is between his sun and his moon. So he's going to take a stand uh, in humble ways. Um, that can serve the greater good, let's just say. But also, he's in touch with the deep self, Moon conjunct Pluto. This person has experienced a lot of intensity and depth. Um, Mercury in Libra has, a voice that is thoughtful. Saturn in Scorpio square. Look at, he has this Jupiter Saturn square. This is Jupiter in Leo squaring Saturn in Scorpio. But it's a waning square, not a waxing square. And so this is obviously a very deep thinking, dedicated person who this is leadership. He's going to take up this leadership and may be transformative. Pluto conjunct Jupiter, certainly to himself. Um, we would say that Chiron is, I don't know if you could say it's a handle on the bucket chart, but all this energy is moving through the wounded healer at 0 degrees Aquarius. That's where Pluto's been. So he's part of this Aries vortex. He may play a part in bringing healing to the community. Um, Also, his nodes, North Node at Sag, 22 Sag, South Node in Gemini. He's a thinker. He's maybe an intellect, but he's here to communicate his vision. Now, I'm going pretty fast, so I'm going to go over to the biwheel here. So I've put his planets to the United States planets. And what is really interesting is this the United States planets? Okay. Is his south node falls on the USA Mars with his north node opposite it. And what's really interesting is that's where Donald Trump's sun is. Donald Trump's sun is at 20 degrees Gemini. So there's some way that what's going on in America right now, uh, where he's connected with, it's almost like we could imagine he has some kind of past karma that is involved in the United States, and he's here to bring out his point of view. I mean, there's very many ways we can look at that. Here, his sun is on the USA Neptune, and that Neptune is squaring that Mars. So he has a big T square. There's his sun at 21 Virgo. It's squaring his south node, it's squaring his north node. That means that this is a very potent turning point lifetime for him, for who he is. And he's playing right into that square in the USA chart with Mars and Neptune, which is like the warrior and propaganda or illusion or higher spiritual connection. So he's very involved in certain ways with what's going on right now with Donald Trump. And then you can see his Mercury's on the USA Saturn opposite Chiron and squaring the sun. So basically, he's a voice that's talking about the form that the United States is out in the world, the wounding, and how we express ourselves, how we identify ourselves. Does anybody want to comment on this before we end today?
Sue, I'd like to know, like, when you look at the chart, because you don't know the exact time, could you reverse engineer the chart to figure out what houses things belong in?
It's called chart rectification. And it's a practice that astrologers do. Um,
I'm just curious. Just
well,
curious.
it takes time, and the way you do it is you look at what his events are
Mhm.
that might align with certain transits. Um, but anyway, I mean, you could play with it and see as we get to know him better, we might feel what his ascendant might be,
Yeah.
and then we could work from there.
Yeah, thanks. I just was curious.
Yeah, yes, definitely. Okay.
Thank you, Sue, for doing that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm glad you were interested. Okay, let's see. What do I have? Okay, so ending today, just to remember that we're in the middle of this. We're in the beginning, which feels like the middle of a situation. And we're being called to participate and engage with the new vision of who we can be in our evolutionary development, because we're being called into a new era. And we're the warriors being called, the bravery is being called forth. So, also in our personal lives, even if this wasn't going on, to look at where you might step into new situations for yourself with courage. Okay, so Suzanne, I'm so glad you're here.
Me too. Do you want me to just share a couple of haikus real quick? Because we're running
Sure.
so.
Great.
All
Wonderful.
right. So I'll share the one I wrote yesterday and the one I wrote this morning. So
Wonderful.
yesterday I wrote, "The heavens explain the conundrum that we're in, but they do not predict." Okay, and then this morning I just wrote, "Dive deeper each day, find inspiration to say, remember to pray."
Beautiful. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you for bringing us into a positive, uplifting closure today.
Oh, thanks for the great talk, Sue.
Okay.
Lots of information.
Yeah, lots of information. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to end the recording and then I'm going to look at everybody.